and welcome to the Freeborn Podcast. Well, we're going to do two of these this week, and then tomorrow we have Adam Newman coming on. But I have a little bit of time, and so I thought I'd take advantage of it because I probably will have no time next week. And so there's a few things that I didn't get to yesterday that I thought would be good to talk about. I don't know if you saw my Binge Jesus shirt. Move it over here. This is from the show The Chosen. If you haven't watched The Chosen show, you really should get on and see that. It is a fantastic program. It is about the life of Jesus taken from the Gospels. And I know I've talked about it some, and many of you may have heard this, but I was speaking to a couple people this past week who I think listened to some of the stuff I do and had never even heard of the show The Chosen. You really ought to go and watch this show. You can watch the first episode on YouTube, and you can download their app. Just go onto your phone to the App Store, whether it be the App Store or the Google Play, and look for The Chosen Show. And they have an app where you can download it, and you watch the show through the app. And if you have a smart TV, like a Roku, I know works, and a few others work, but some of the smart TVs, you're able to actually cast the show from your phone onto the television. Fantastic, fantastic show. Great production value. I think it's the best show on TV, period, and it is by far and away the best Christian show I've ever seen. I think it's the best one ever produced, in my opinion. Maybe with the exception, or right up there with The Passion of the Christ as far as production value. Now, you may not have liked The Passion of the Christ because that comes from a very strong Catholic background, a very strong Catholic perspective, Roman Catholic perspective, whereas The Chosen is not. The Chosen is made by Dallas Jenkins, who is the son of the famous Jenkins who co-wrote the Left Behind books. So it comes from an evangelical perspective, which means that you have, for instance, Peter actually married, which is very uncommon to find in any type of an entertainment venue perspective, where you have Peter who is married, like he's portrayed in the Gospels. Roman Catholics do not believe he was married. That's one of the issues of the celibacy of the priesthood, is they do not believe that Peter was married, and that therefore the Pope and his agents, which are the priests, should remain celibate. And so this comes from a very strong evangelical perspective, which is, I really like it. I think they cast the best possible actor I could imagine to play Jesus. I mean, he is the best actor on the show, in my opinion, even though Nicodemus is played by a very famous actor, but I actually think the one playing Jesus is a fantastic, fantastic actor, and he plays Jesus so well. And so definitely go and watch that. The first season is available. It's not exactly free to watch, although it might be free to you. So the way they're doing this, The Chosen, is it's a pay it forward system. If you watch it, it's because somebody paid them for you to be able to see it. And then if you like it and you want to provide that opportunity to somebody else anywhere in the world, you can pay, whether it be $5 or $5,000 or whatever it is you want to pay. They have all different tiers, and you can pay it. And they'll tell you how many people will be able to watch the show because of what you paid. And then also the money is paid in, also goes to producing the second season. And they have, I think, the last time I checked, 3 episodes paid for the second season. So I would hope that you like it. And if you do, then you should also pay it forward. Give them whatever it is you're able to afford. I know at this time right now, you should be saving your money. But if you're spending any amount of money at all, or budgeting any amount of money at all to entertainment, you should really budget some money to send to The Chosen if you like the show. And one way you can give them money is you buy some of their swag, some of their merch, right? That's T-shirts for you people who don't know what those words mean. I doubt there's anyone who doesn't know, but if one of the 3 members of my audience are scratching their head wondering what merch and swag is, That's short for merchandise. And so you go to their store and you can buy shirts, hoodies. They have all different kinds of merchandise you can buy from them. And that's another way to financing their show. So for instance, this shirt is about $25, $26 for one of these shirts. That's obviously overpriced. A t-shirt is not worth that much money, but it's a way in which they're financing their show. So I've bought several of them. And no, not all the same, even though that would be my style, right? To buy 40 of the exact same t-shirt, but I bought different ones that I'll be wearing on the podcast, along with our Freeborn shirts. I wear those on the podcast. But anyways, you can get this shirt. I like it. I like what it says, Binge Jesus. I know some of you are appalled. In fact, by wearing this shirt, I've offended all the right people. And you're just appalled that anybody would put the name of Jesus in context of binge watching him. But I can think of no better thing to binge watch than a show that showcases Jesus Christ accurately as you can while you're dramatizing, accurately to the Gospels than Jesus Christ. And they really do a fantastic job on the show of The Chosen. So I would encourage you to go watch that, and maybe in the future podcast we'll talk a little bit about some of the episodes and things that I really liked in those. Anyways, there are some things I wanted to get to that I didn't get to last week, and so I'll continue a little bit about the coronavirus times and the time we're in, and then move on to some other issues not related. One thing I will tell you, and Terry just got back from going through a Popeyes drive-thru, and this happened to me already once, and it happened to her today. She orders the apple pie, which since I'm advertising for all these different things, I know I should get paid for this, but I don't. But since I'm advertising for The Chosen and now apparently for Popeyes, I will say this in favor of Popeyes. They have the best apple pie, pre-made apple pie you can buy. Better than Bill Miller. I know that's blasphemy for some of you people, but Popeyes apple pie is the best apple pie you can buy made. I make a better apple pie personally, but if you're going to buy an apple pie, you definitely want a Popeyes apple pie. It's better than McDonald's old apple pie, and it's certainly better than that garbage they sell now. Ever since that Supersize movie came out, they had to go and get all health conscious. Like anybody's going to McDonald's for their health, but now they're all health conscious. So they got this limp, baked, sorry excuse of an apple pie, not worth buying. Although their sugar cookies are fantastic. Definitely check out McDonald's sugar cookies. I know I'm doing a whole segment on advertising. I ought to be getting money from these people. Anyways, McDonald's sugar cookies, yes. McDonald's apple pie, no. But Popeye's apple pie, now that's an apple pie. So, I went through the drive-thru in Houston on the way home from working there, ordered 3 of them because it's a long trip and it's a long ways to the next Popeyes. And so it's like 20 minutes. And so 3 apple pies about gets me 20 minutes away. So I ordered 3 apple pies. We get going, look in the bag, no apple pies in there. And you're on the freeway on I-10 headed to San Antonio. Certainly no time to turn around and try to go back and claim the undelivered apple pies. Terry goes through the drive-thru today, tell her to get me a couple apple pies. No. So when you're going through these drive-thrus, you've probably have figured this out because probably most of you are going through more drive-thrus than I am because they've got you convinced that you owe it to the restaurant industry to keep them afloat. Even though, when's the last time a restaurant gave you a discount for being a repeat customer? Look, I go to restaurants often, not now, but because I don't like drive-thrus. Whole idea of getting your food in a bag thrown in through the window, and then you take it home, and when you get home, you open it up, and you eat soggy chicken and cold apple pie and tepid coleslaw. That's not my idea of going out to eat. I can eat that at home every day. So No, I don't go there. But they probably have many of you convinced that what you ought to be doing is you ought to be supporting the food industry, even though I doubt they've ever done anything for you other than overcharge you at the table and give you food that was not really made to your order and you're too nice to send it back, and then they charge you full price anyways. And I doubt they've ever handed out gift cards to people saying, "Hey, we really appreciate you being here all the time. This is a customer appreciation program." But now they've done the propaganda, and the restaurant industry has convinced so many of you that you need to go and you need to support them and go through the drive-through and support them. And so you're doing that, and that's fine. That's wonderful. I don't buy into this nonsense, but whatever. Anyways, if you're going through the drive-through, little tip of the day, check your bag carefully. I think that these fast food restaurants, like for instance, Whataburger came out the other day saying that even though Greg Abbott, the governor of Texas, is going to scale back the lockdown, essentially put an end to it and start phasing in dine-in eating. They're able to do it now at 25%. And Whataburger's come out and said they're going to hold off. Now, I think there's a couple of reasons why. 25% isn't nearly enough capacity to keep these restaurants afloat. But also, I think places like Whataburger, from what I can tell, are doing pretty well just with drive-in. And if you figure all the money that they're actually saving by running drive-in only, I wouldn't be surprised if they're praying for the lockdown to last forever. I mean, think about it. No more free refills. That's a ton of money saved right there. No more people coming back complaining about their order, getting free burgers, getting free things because, you know, you never lack a customer who says, "Well, I said a large fries and you gave me a medium." And even though the ticket says medium, they still give you a large fry. And there's plenty of people that take advantage of that situation. They know it and they take advantage of it. No more of that, hardly. I mean, how many people are going back in the drive-through line and going back through the drive-through to complain about a missing apple pie? I mean, as much as I love the apple pie, I still didn't drive back to Houston when I realized they had shorted me my apple pie. So, you know, and now they get to turn the tables, whereas before, some of you would take advantage and pretend, well, not some of my audience, of course, but people that don't listen to this show take advantage of their good nature and pretend that you ordered something you really didn't. Well, now they're taking it out on all of us, and you order something and they just put whatever they want in the bag, throw it out into your window, and away you go, and you just live with it. And so I think that a lot of these fast food places are really enjoying these times and are perfectly happy to have a reason to lay people off and perfectly happy to no longer have to deal with customers and a dine-in experience, all the cleanup. Can you imagine the amount of money they're saving from not paying people to wipe down the tables and mop and sweep the floor and clean the restroom? Can you imagine how happy these people are that they don't have to clean the restroom now 2 or 3 or 4 times a day, and the nasty mess that people make in there in fast food restaurants? Man, if I was Whataburger, I would be locking the doors and say, forget this dine-in business. And as long as they can keep the corona scare going, the better. So, yeah, check your bags through the drive-through. Another thing I wanted to talk about on this corona thing is that you ought to be very careful with the propaganda that you're seeing on this, especially when you see pictures. And we're talking about, you know, social distancing, and states are even sending drones to spy on people, paying people to spy on people, paying people to be snitches and snitch on their neighbors and snitch on whoever they see that isn't quote unquote social distancing, taking pictures of people who they think are too close together, taking pictures of them with their smartphone and sending them into the nanny state to tell on us. Now, you got to be very careful when you see this. Some of you might be of the persuasion. You see these pictures showing people so close together, and you're thinking, this is horrible. This is just horrible. Let me give you an example of this. I'm going to put a picture up here on the screen, and you can see it. So you see these people, man, they're standing close together. We need to report these people. This is a reporter did this on a blog blog post called what is this called? The site Bored Panda. I mean, you got to be bored to be looking at this. But here he is. He took this picture of this line of people, and it looks like they are crammed together really, really tight. And if you saw that picture, you'd want to report all these people. But that's done from a far away with a telephoto lens. Now, most people nowadays don't know much about this type of photography because they're all taking pictures with their smartphones, and so they don't have different lenses, and they don't understand how lenses compress space. But it's really a pretty simple, photographers call it compression, but it really is a pretty simple concept. And the idea is that the further you are away from something, the smaller it looks. It's real simple. And even if when you put a telephoto lens on it, even though the people, the objects in the frame get larger, the spaces stay small, if that makes sense to you. So with a telephoto lens, you take a picture of this group of people, this line of people, that's what it's going to look like. But then if you take a picture of the same people in the same line, but from the side with a wide angle lens, and so you're much closer, that photographer in the telephoto lens is probably maybe 30, 40, 50 feet away, and here they're like 10 feet away. And so the space between these people has not been compressed by this lens, and you're also taking it from the side, and so you have a different perspective. Now look at the way these people look when they are, that's the image credit down below. Anyway, look at the way these people look now that you're taking this picture from far away, from an angle, with a wide angle lens, compared to the one we looked at with the telephoto lens. See there? Same people, same line, entirely different perspective. And he's got a number of them. Here it looks like they're all piled on top of each other. Same people, different lens. Look at that. Entirely different perspective. It looks like they're almost about to kiss each other, right? From a different angle, far apart. Again, looks like they're getting right up close, breathing on each other. Telephoto lens, wide angle lens. Same people, far apart. Again, telephoto lens, wide angle lens. It's all about the perspective. You may have heard people say that a picture is worth 1,000 words. Obviously, those people have never played Pictionary. If you've ever played Pictionary, you know that the only words a picture are worth are about 1,000 wrong words. You got to be very careful with pictures. You think, well, if we get a picture of something, that's evidence. Then you know that happened because there's a picture. You can see, I saw it with my own 2 eyes. Like they say, you got to be very careful and not believe your lying eyes. Pictures can be as deceiving as words. They can be deceiving as sounds, as memories. Pictures are not very good evidence of many things, of perspective, of dimension. Pictures can be manipulated, and that's without Photoshop. Just right out of the camera, depending on the lens you take, the angle you take it, the direction the camera is pointed, right? The angle, that's the angle of the camera, the background, the lighting, all of that, even without any gear, just a simple camera out in the street, you can tell a story that never happened. So when you see these videos, you see these pictures put up on news or on podcasts, on channels, and you're looking at that, and you're all outraged about how people are crammed up tight together, you might want to do a little bit of research into photography before you get yourself all in an outrage. All right, that's the end of the Corona segment. Let's talk a little bit about secularism. I know this is completely on a different topic, but let's talk a little bit about secularism. So for a long time, our society has been moving very, very rapidly away from religion in every sense. And they're trying to create a secular society. And a big reason why they're doing this, in my opinion, is because they do not want God in their notice, like Paul says in Romans. Paul says that the world Gentiles mainly, but the world as a whole, did not want to retain God in their notice. They want to disengage themselves. They want to unhook themselves from God. They do not want God telling them how to live their life. They don't want God telling them what to think or what to believe or how to marry or who they can marry or who they can have sex with or any of these things. People want to be their own gods. They want to be their own masters. They don't want to serve God. They want to serve their lusts. They want to serve their desires. And that is what we call sin. And they don't want sin. They want to get rid of sin. And they want everything to be a matter of opinion. And if something's wrong, they want it to be wrong based on some other rationale, some other justification than God said it or the Bible says it. And so that's the direction our society has been moving, into a secular society in which everything is subjective. Now, we all pretty much know this. Now, but the interesting thing about this is that the whole purpose of this moving away from religion is to get rid of sin. In my opinion, that is the underlying purpose of this. They want a secular society because there's no sin in a secular society, and they want to get rid of sin. The problem is that there appears to be a universal human need for sin. Need in the sense that humanity seems to be unable to cope with a reality that does not include some sense of sin in it. And the reason I say there appears to be this universal human need is because this secular society that has been built up and created over the past, say, 50 years especially, in which there will no longer be any sin in it, this society has, without apparent design or purpose for it, has created in itself sin again. Now, it's not the traditional values of sin. It's not what God has called sin. That won't work. You can't have that. So that's been blown up, and that's been done away with. And now in its place, we have a whole new absolute morality being built in, only without design. This is being built in haphazardly. And it has all the problems that any haphazard solution will create. And so what basically has happened is they've gotten rid of sin. That's left this enormous void in the human psyche, in the human mind, where sin used to be, and we used to be able to gauge our lives off of that, and we used to be able to measure ourselves off of this and order ourselves off of this idea of sin. And it was universal. We all shared it. It was a shared value system. That's been blown up and done away. And in its place is this deep abyss out of which a monster has come out and reared its head. And that is this new form of sin, this new sin system, paradigm. And it's been completely manufactured out of whole cloth, but not in any structured way or any intelligent way or logical way. It's just sort of been hodgepodge together by all these different identity groups have put this together. And so now sin is to speak against homosexuality, for instance, and that is now the sin of homophobia, or speak against trans people, which is now transphobia. And they have all these different no-nos, these social faux pas, these sins actually, right? Where if you do them, you have actually committed a moral crime. They are trying to now turn these moral crimes into actual crimes, where you have countries like Canada, you have countries like Britain, where speaking your opinion about homosexuality can actually get you put in jail. It is now a crime to say something. It's always been a crime to instigate violence. So if I got up and I said that I wanted somebody dead, I wanted somebody to be put to death, even if I didn't do the crime. But if somebody heard me say that and for whatever reason thought that what my opinion or my expression was had some binding value on them, and therefore they did it, I myself could be prosecuted for inciting crime. Now that's common law. And that's always been illegal, and it should be illegal. Nobody should be allowed to use their voice to knowingly incite crime. But if I have an expression, and if I have an opinion, and I express that opinion, and my opinion is that a certain lifestyle I believe to be immoral, and that God would judge this, not I should judge this, not that society should judge this, but that God, in the afterlife, after this world is over, in eternal judgment, God will judge those people. Now, you may not like that, and you may think that's not biblically sound or good doctrine. You may not think that's good evangelism. You might have 100 reasons why you think I shouldn't say that. But that is not inciting violence against anyone, because the same people would say that that anyone who makes this judgment is also going to be judged by God, because nobody has a right to judge anybody but God. Now, that doesn't mean we don't have a right to speak our opinion about people, but what we're saying is we are not the judges. We are simply conveying information about a judgment we believe might happen. That is illegal in some countries like Canada and the UK and most of Europe. Just stating an opinion is now considered illegal. Excuse me. So this is the sin that has been instituted. Not just this, but this form of thing. In every identity group wants to get their pet peeves institutionalized as sins. Now, they don't call it sin. They call them phobias. So now sin, the word for sin, has become phobia, and every identity group wants their pet peeves to be institutionalized as phobia. They want them to be instantiated, not only into our shared moral code, but they want them instantiated into the criminal justice system even as crimes. Obviously, this has a number of problems. One is they are making, and this is exactly what the Bible predicted. For any of you who wonder how relevant the Bible is, Jesus Christ predicted that those things that are evil are going to be called good, and those things that are good are going to be called evil. That there's going to be an upending of traditional, biblical-based, divine, moral code is going to be upended, and things that are wrong from God's point of view are going to be considered right, and vice versa. So that's one of the problems. But there's another problem with that. And that is that because this new sin paradigm, let's just assume that we could live with this. Let's assume moral subjectivity for a moment, stipulate moral subjectivity, and say that that there is no absolute value to the traditional moral code of Judeo-Christianity, and that times change, modernity has happened, and we should step out of this antiquated moral code that governed the world for 6,000 years or 10,000 years, or however long it's been, and we step out of that and into this modern moral code of phobias, where that's the new sin. Let's say we could do that. Well, there's a problem even there. Even putting aside the Bible and Christianity and Judeo-Christian code, let's put that aside, and even putting that aside, there is an enormous problem with this paradigm that we are now expected to embrace, this hodgepodge system cobbled together out of all these competing identity groups. They don't even get along. They're all competing. Just because you slam their acronyms together into LGBTQ, XYZ, or whatever it all turns into, does not mean these people actually get along. Their interests do not align. And you can look into that and do your own research. I don't want to get into that. But this is all cobbled together. And you say, well, but it's all coming together. No, it's not coming together very well. You need to understand something about Judeo-Christian morality that will reveal the problem with this cobbled together hodgepodge morality that's now being foisted on us today. Judeo-Christian morality, whether you believe it's through divine revelation, such as I believe, or if you think it's simply society through evolutionary perfection coming up with this code, either way, the Judeo-Christian Western morality is something that has been thought through and perfected for thousands of years. Thousands of years. For a significant portion of those thousands of years, for a significant percentage of that time, it was the only thing anyone thought about. The first full book to be printed on a printing press was the Bible. Practically every book printed was a religious text for 1,000 years. The most read book for a long time was religious text, not even the Bible. The Bible is obviously far and away the most read book ever, but Pilgrim's Progress was the most read book for a very long time. Religious texts were the most read books. Everybody had these texts in their homes. Everybody read them. Every author wrote some form of a religious text. Almost every author. Almost every artist drew, painted, sculpted religious icons. This is what people thought. People like Isaac Newton, who were scientists, considered science a hobby and the study of the Bible to be their primary concern. So this is the environment, the conditions in which Judeo-Christian Western culture arose. This was not cobbled together. This is not done impromptu. These traditional moral values were carefully thought out, crafted, sculpted, assembled together by many people over a long period of time. So you not only got a very carefully crafted concept of sin in this culture, but you got everything, all the necessary accoutrements that come along with that are necessary for a concept of sin. Like, for instance, forgiveness. We take forgiveness for granted. Like, it's forgiveness. It's easy. No, this is a very complicated concept. This is a concept that there are societies that simply do not have it. The Native American cultures, as far as I have found, now, if you have research showing otherwise, I would love to see it. But as far as I have researched and I've been able to ascertain, the Native American cultures had no real concept of forgiveness. No concept of mercy as a virtue, as a strength. No concept of servanthood as a strength, as a path to leadership. These are not common things that just will naturally arise. These are very unique to Christianity specifically. Some of these are not even part of Judeo-Christianity. They're only part of Christianity, but they're not part of hardly any other culture. You don't find these things anywhere else. They don't have a way of dealing with sin. And that's the problem we have with this modern hodgepodge system of sin, this modern phobia system of sin. There's no forgiveness for it. So if you commit one of these sins, right, you say something that is homophobic, or you say something that is sexist, or you say something that is racist, there's no coming back from that. And this has been observed in our current modern culture, right? So in the current environment, you'll have very famous people, actors, singers, politicians, who will admit to or who will be ratted out to have said something homophobic or sexist or racist or whatever, transphobic. Not yesterday, not last year, 30 years ago. 30 years ago, when they were 18 years old, they might have dressed up with blackface, or they might have said something sexist, or they might have made a joke about a homosexuality, whatever. 30 years ago, when they were teenagers. That's it. They're done. They're done. Their career's over. Their life is over. And then intellectuals, highly intellectual people, progressive intellectuals like Eric Weinstein and Brett Weinstein and Rubin and all these others that are progressives to even right-leaning progressives are saying, well, how do we get forgiveness? How do we get redemption? They don't know what word to use, and they don't know how, but they don't know. They say we need to figure out a path. Right. So they've instituted an entire moral code, subjective moral code, that they've now instantiated as the absolute morality for all humanity, without a thought to how somebody can commit one of these phobias and be forgiven, redeemed, atoned for. See, the Bible and Western Judeo-Christian culture, they have a very rich, nuanced system for dealing with sin. This is why taking criticism on Christianity from these progressive, leftist, liberal type people is such a dead end, because they don't understand it. They haven't even researched it. So they look at Christian sin and they think how horrible and backwards and terrible it is. And they want to criticize the Bible for having these horrible, backwards, terrible penalties for sin. Well, so do they. They actually are starting to consider death penalty for some of these phobias. And if you consider that the punishment for every crime is ultimately the death penalty, I know there's some countries that want to brag that they don't have a death penalty, but that's just silly. I don't know of a single country on earth that does not have a de facto death penalty. I mean, think about it for a second. Let's say you run a stop sign. What's the penalty for running a stop sign? Well, it's death. Death is the penalty. Now, that's not immediately obvious, and it's not directly, because you say, no, you'll get pulled over by a policeman and he'll give you a ticket. Well, what if you don't pull over? Will he let you go if you just keep driving? Does he let you go? No, he chases you down. What if you don't stop? Will they put up a roadblock? What if you try to go through the roadblock? Will they pull out their guns? What are they going to do with those guns? Well, they're going to shoot you and kill you. What if you do get the ticket? What if you don't want to pay it? Are they just going to let you not pay the ticket? Or when you get stopped, are they going to arrest you? What if you resist? What if you fight back? What if you don't allow yourself to be arrested? Eventually, the punishment for every crime is death. But they're actually talking about reinstituting death penalty for the most egregious socialist, leftist phobia sins, because they don't have a system for dealing with this. They put all their energy into destroying the sin mechanism, the sin issue, the sin system. How terrible it is, talking about sin, making people feel guilty. Talk about making people feel guilty. Can you imagine a Christian in a Christian church finding something you did 30 years ago when you were a kid and trying to make you feel guilty for it? That's not what Christians do. The same people have ridiculed Christianity because we have forgiveness. That's the ridicule of fundamentalist evangelical Christianity. We say that if you confess your sin, God puts it as far as the east is from the west, and we admonish people that if somebody has asked for forgiveness, God has forgiven them, and you should not be bringing it to their charge. That's Christianity. What system does the world have for this? So they have their new sins. Okay, fine, let's stipulate these new sins are every bit as right and as correct as God's sins are. They're not, but let's just say they are. Let's say we should get with the program and move on into modernity and accept all these new sins. Fine. Where is redemption? Where is atonement? Where is forgiveness? How is forgiveness done other than by fiat? And who gets to be God and forgive sins? See, it's a whole nother wrinkle. The Pharisees rightly observed when Jesus told the paralytic man, the palsy man, told him, your sins are forgiven. And they said, who can forgive sins but God only? They were right, which is strong evidence towards the divinity of Christ. But who can forgive sins but God only? Who's going to forgive sins now? So we've gotten rid of God. God is dead, as Nietzsche famously proclaimed, or observed, actually. That's a very misquoted text, but as Nietzsche famously observed, that society, in trying to get rid of guilt, had killed God. Now God's dead. Old-fashioned sin has been done away. We're all free of sin, and now we're all living under the constant terror of being labeled phobic. Because under this system, there's no atonement. Who's going to pay the atonement? There's no redemption. Who is going to win redemption? Who is going? Where is that progressive Messiah who's going to come and do an actual real sacrifice that will provide a mechanism for forgiveness? You can't just by fiat forgive anybody. That's what progressivism is finding out. Secularism is discovering that the reason they can't forgive is there is no mechanism for it. And you can't just claim it. Who's that authority? They've gotten rid of absolute authority. So who's going to say that you're forgiven? Who? Some actor? Some politician? Who? There's no absolute authority anymore. That's gone. You can't have a book that sets out the rules of sin and the rules of forgiveness. That would look too much like a Bible. Can't have a book. So where are you? Exactly. That's where our society's going. They can't live without sin. The human psyche, the human spirit, the human mind will not allow it. It's a void that must be filled. And the sins that they're instantiating in the place of real sin have no thought behind them. And I believe, even more to the point, they have no revelation behind them. They have no reality behind them. They have no system behind them of forgiveness, redemption, atonement, forgiveness. None of that exists. And as far as I can see, I don't see how it can exist. So it's truly a terrifying proposition. It's essentially the moral equivalent of what we already saw in the 20th century. Russia and communism blew up traditional society, just did away with it, and tried to come up with a new society that was going to be built on reason and science. And it turned into a bloodbath. Complete bloodbath. And that's where we're headed now. It is the same. People think that what drove communism was money. That communism was about money. And that is completely wrong. Communism, socialism, leftism, secularism, they're all the same thing. It is about getting rid of that absolute authority that is telling you how you have to live your life. That's what it's really about. And of course, that's God. I don't know how Christians are going to survive in this world to come. It's going to be very difficult. The U.S. is one of the last places on earth that has free speech. We are the city on a hill. We are the last best hope on earth. And if they ever figure out how to get around the First Amendment, and they overturn that through a convention of the states or through an amendment, and they get rid of freedom of speech, or they tweak it to say that hate speech is not included in freedom of speech, then you and I, American Christians, we're going to be in very dire trouble. We're going to be where the rest of the world is now. And we're going to be put under a very subjective, very poorly thought out, very shoddy system of sin that has no type of forgiveness in it. And that is a very bleak and scary future. Anyways, those were the things I was thinking about today. I thought it might encourage you. So I think I'm going to start calling this the Encouragement Podcast, because that's what I'm good at. And so you always should do what you're good at. Anyway, tomorrow morning, we'll have Adam Newman here at 9 a.m. And I'm really looking forward to that conversation. I hope you'll join us live at 9 a.m. Until then, God bless you.